Here we go.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side, yeah.
Now, Chris Duel.
Another day, another opening in the National Football League's head coaching ranks. Sean Payton leaving the New Orleans Saints. We'll get into that. What's next for him? What that might mean. Can Jerry Jones and his millions of dollars change the mind of Sean Payton if that were in the mix? We'll get into that. Baseball Hall of Fame. We have a new Hall of Famer and some familiar names once again kept out of the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. We'll get into all of that. NBA Spurs win last night. Can they win 2 in a row tonight? Hence, on the live video feed, I am wearing my Spurs hard hat because beating the Memphis Grizzlies tonight, even though they'll play in San Antonio at the AT&T Center, will be hard. So I'm wearing the hard hat. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Speaking of the Spurs, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs on a Spurs game day / game night. He'll join us just after 8 o'clock this morning, just after 7 this morning in the next hour. Scott MANDZIARA, broadcaster, baseball guru, former Soundscape stylist on this show back in the day. He knows and loves his baseball. He'll talk not only what happened yesterday with the Hall of Fame voting, but what's upcoming in Major League Baseball with their lockout, what's next for the Houston Astros, and more. Dave Oehler, your Soundscape stylist. Shannon Salty Sweeney, how are you this morning?
I feel great, Chris, because with every day, it seems like my chances of becoming an NFL head coach get greater and greater with more and more openings. Nearly a third of the league right now is looking for a new head coach, and I like my odds here.
Very nice. Exactly. I mean, when Sean Payton steps down, that opens up another slot, and we all step up one step on the ladder of becoming an NFL head coach. I think you'd be I think you'd be so much better than Urban Meyer. Easily better than Urban Meyer.
I mean, as far as NFL experience, we have the same going into it. So that's the way I'm choosing to look at it. Glass half full. I like my chances. I'm just waiting to get a couple phone calls, get some things scheduled so I can start flying out on the PJs to have some meetings with some of these teams.
And you don't have a restaurant that you own to worry about. You don't have some floozy on a bar stool, trying to do God knows what. So yeah, it's all good. The so much to cover, Shannon, and I think the banner headline yesterday, and as we wake up this morning and digest it, Sean Payton, the longtime, very successful, very revered head coach of the New Orleans Saints, true to the tea leaves we were reading and talking about yesterday. Probably the biggest one was Saints owner Gail Benson the day before when asked what's the status of her head coach, Sean Payton. She said she did not know. Sean Payton stepping away and for now saying he doesn't intend to coach in the National Football League next year. And, I take him at his word. I was listening to Colin Cowherd yesterday on our air midday. He follows us after the Dan Patrick Show, both on AM 1300 The Zone and Ticket 760. And he was speaking with Jay Glazer, who apparently has a close relationship with Sean Payton. And according to Jay Glazer, Sean Payton has been saying, for weeks, if not months, that he was kind of burning out. He's 58 years old. He's done this a long time. He's newly married. So, I mean, that could put some demands on you. I haven't checked out at age 58. I don't know the age of Sean Payton's wife. I don't know if this is trophy wife time or not. I'll look at that up during the show. But there is this, Shannon. There is no salary cap for a head coach. And Jerry Jones, two things strike me, and I want to get your thoughts on them. Number one, if Jerry Jones really wanted Sean Payton, and Sean Payton, as we know, and you and I have discussed, has a home in Dallas. He's a former Cowboy assistant coach under Bill Parcells. Jerry let him get away the first time. That was a mistake. Maybe Jerry realizes that now. So two things occur to me. Number one, no salary cap in coaching in the NFL. Jerry could pay Sean Payton anything he wants. And money talks, and we all have our price, even if Sean Payton would rather just vacation at Cabo for the next year. Secondly, on his way out the door, Shannon, he loves the people of New Orleans, just like Drew Brees. Sean Payton has had a big impact on that city, on that community, including in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. Even in the back of his mind, if Sean Payton thought, you know what, by March, I may be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, the day he leaves, Sean Payton cannot say, I'm leaving the Saints. It's been fun, but I'm really looking forward to becoming a head coach of a team that's got some legitimate quarterbacks that I can coach and maybe get back to the Super Bowl. Even if that's in the back of his mind, Shannon, on the way out the door, he has to say, I love New Orleans. It's been great. Thank you, everybody. But for now, I've got no plans on coaching next year or in the foreseeable future. It's the politically correct thing to say. Your thoughts? Yeah,
just like a coach who's leaving one school to go to another, right? You're until everything's written in stone, you're not going to outwardly express that. I sent this to you as kind of a joke yesterday that it just so happens that this week Netflix is releasing the Kevin James movie entitled Home Team that kind of documents in a obviously a scripted, made for entertainment way of Sean Payton's year off from the league, thanks to some wrongdoing on his part, where he ended up coaching his son's football program. And movie being released on Friday means Sean Payton's probably already seen it himself. I'm almost now thinking it's not too much of a stretch to think that he watched that film and kind of relived that year in his head and thought, man, I was away from the game. I got to be around my family. I got to be around my kid and coach my kid. Maybe that's something that would be good for me right now, almost 10 years later. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You mentioned his new wife. Her name is Skyline Montgomery, a former, I believe, Miss West Virginia and Miss USA contestant. She is 37 years old. So only, what's that, 21 years?
She's 37.
21 years. So
21 years. When he was 25 years old, she was 4.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Take that for what you will.
Yeah. So, he may want to. Well, and as I said to you yesterday, we might not be able to get Sean Payton as head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. Mm-hmm. But as you mentioned in the new movie, Kevin James plays the role of Sean Payton. I do believe, Shannon, if Jerry Jones hired Kevin James as head coach for next year, that would be an upgrade from Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
At least Kevin James can give pregame pep talks and act like he's got some gravitas and some passion. He can act like he knows what he's doing. He can act like he knows something about clock management.
Yeah,
much I'm sick of Mike McCarthy.
He can play the role and be on the sidelines and look engaged, of which is something we've not really seen from Mike McCarthy ever just looking like he's thinking about his next meal on sideline. And for that reason, Kevin James was trending yesterday as, well, maybe they just go out and they hire Kevin James. I mean, he studied probably the playbook a little bit to prep for this film. How, what could go wrong? I feel bad for Jameis Winston in this situation, Chris, because obviously he made the move from Tampa. He sat behind Drew Brees. He kind of humbled himself. He worked on his game. He was playing much better this year. He got hurt, so he got taken out. And obviously, that didn't help the Saints case for a run at the playoffs. But a lot of times in situations like this, when a new coach comes in, right, they're part of what makes the job viable to one of those coaches is, okay, who's the current quarterback, who's a potential quarterback, and who's coming up in the draft. And I don't know right now with what we have from Jameis Winston will be enough to convince a new coach coming in to say, all right, this is the guy I'm going to be working with for years to come. I kind of feel bad for him. He worked so hard to get where he is. And now this moment is like, well, wait a minute. Sean Payton, you were the key to my success.
And the subtle subtext seems that Sean Payton doesn't have confidence in Jameis Winston. If Sean Payton thought Jameis Winston is my guy to get us back to the promised land, he might stick around. And this occurs to me as well, Shannon, with Sean Payton. In the era of the transfer portal in college football. So in college football, you got a couple of things. You got the transfer portal, which is huge now for players. You've got coaches have always had a transfer portal. Most notably recently, Lincoln Riley making the leap. Brian Kelly making the leap. And then in the NFL now, it's the era of Tom Brady as a player. Tom Brady was with the Patriots and thought, you know what? The way things are going here, I can't win another Super Bowl. I'm here to win Super Bowls. I'm Tom Brady. I'm leaving. And he did, and it worked. I wonder if it's a similar dynamic for Sean Payton, who must know, hey, I'm 58. I just married Miss, what was she, West Virginia, whatever she was?
Yes.
I have a trophy wife now. I'm one of the best quarterbacks in the league, but right now it's a quarterback-driven league, and my quarterbacks are Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, and Ian Book. I don't think so. I'm going to opt out the way Lincoln Riley opted out of Oklahoma, the way players jump in the transfer portal in college, the way Tom Brady opted out of New England. I am opting out, and I can take a pick. I can land where there's a good quarterback. I'm a quarterback whisperer, and you need a great quarterback to get back to the Super Bowl. I did everything I could for New Orleans. I'm done. I'm out. I will see you on the other side. I think that was part of this as well.
Yeah, you mentioned Tom Brady and his decision to leave the Patriots for a place like Tampa, and it's interesting talking about Sean Payton. We're so used to seeing coaches being let go, right? Because they didn't, get enough wins to make the playoffs. They weren't consistent enough overall. They didn't have the locker room, whatever it may be. We're used to seeing players retire because they're physically beat up or because they just lost it, right? Overnight, something happened. They just weren't the player they used to be. Their time had come to an end. Now this week we're having conversations about Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, who statistically are still having some of their best years in the league and could continue playing on. Yet the conversation is, are they done? And now here we are with Sean Payton, who, has been an incredible coach, a consistent coach in this league for many, many years. He's stepping away. There is that potential for him to come back after some time away, but I think it's a shock to the system, just as fans of the NFL, because we're so used to being like, wait, you're leaving, but you weren't fired. Why would you walk away from this? Look at all you have ahead of you. And you're right. He probably looks at this team and thinks, yeah, this is going to be more work than I'm willing to put in at this point. After all the work I've already put in, I don't want to start kind of from the bottom again to try and build it back up.
And it's interesting, if you're a Saints fan, one of the teams that some people thought was on Russell Wilson's wish list was the New Orleans Saints, because Sean Payton is a quarterback whisperer and because they did have quarterback issues. I'm noticing on the live video feed, Marcus Valdespino says Sean Payton would have a better chance with the Saints with his wife, his new trophy wife, Skyleen Montgomery, at quarterback instead of Jameis Winston, Taysom Hill, Trevor Siemian, or Ian Book. It's an interesting and sad thought. Gosh. Now, before we go to break, Dave Ayler, our Soundscape stylist. Let's say hello to Dave. And Dave, you are more objective on this than Shannon or I am. Of course, something happens in the NFL, and the first thing I think is, okay, how does this affect the Dallas Cowboys? My first thought, even when I hear Sean Payton say, hey, man, I need to just take a little break. I don't see myself coaching in 2022. My first thought is Jerry Jones, open up the pocketbook. Do you think Sean Payton, if offered enough money with his home in Dallas, do you think he would take the head coaching position of the Cowboys, even though as of yesterday, he's saying, I don't see myself coaching in 2022?
Well, first of all, I need to have to clarify something. So he's 58, she's 37, right?
Is that right? 21 years, yes.
21 years, okay.
Skyline Montgomery, former Miss West Virginia.
Hey, if it could work out, it's I've tried that a few times and it never worked out for me. But if it's working for him, great.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go. I don't think I think he's sitting out this year. I don't think he's coaching. I think he's going to he might do TV. He might. Other than that, he's going to be on the beach in Cabo. He likes partying down in Cabo. He can hang out there with his trophy wife and kid and do whatever he wants. And but after next year, or after this year, I guess I should say, I wouldn't be surprised if he came back. I think he's going to take a year off.
Well, and as Shannon just mentioned, though, with the Bounty Gate year that he was forced out of the league, where Kevin James did the movie about Sean. I mean, dude had a year off a few years ago. Come on, man.
Yeah, but he was still in the coaching mindset then.
Well, coaching his kids' team.
Yeah, but
hey, little Timmy,
I
called an end around.
He may not have been coaching in the NFL, but he was passing plays off.
Ooh, how dare you, sir?
I'm just saying.
How dare you?
There's ways around that.
Well, how dare you?
If you're not cheating, you're not trying.
Chris, you sat out. That was 2012. That was 10 years ago.
Jeez.
I know it doesn't feel like
it,
but
true. Wow. Yeah, his wife was only 8 at the time, Skyline Montgomery. So
I'm sensing some jealousy there, Chris.
No, I just find it funny.
Yeah, I've tried that. I've tried that a few times. I've tried that a few times and it didn't work out. But if it works for him, God bless him.
All right. Lots more to talk about. And what a great show. We've got the high five play of the day moments away. I kind of like the high five play of the day. I think you will as well. Coming up at the top of the hour, Scott MANDZIARA, one of our baseball gurus, along with Mike Hardball Harge. We're going to try to get Harge actually later in the week. Harge doing a great job on the Sports Grind from 2 to 4. And of course, he's a former professional baseball player. Our go-to guy as well on all things Texas Longhorns. So Harge, we're going to grab him later in the week. Today, we'll talk Major League Baseball and the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. What they did yesterday, are they correct in continuing to freeze out players that are believed to have cheated or used steroids? Or is it time to just say, you know what? It's not the Hall of Good Dudes. It's the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about all that with Scott MANDZIARA. We'll talk about the baseball lockout and more. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, who won last night and will go for 2 in a row tonight. Bill joins us at 8. Your chance to win $1,000 at 7:20 and at 8:20. And coming up as well in the 7 o'clock hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays, and more. She's the salty one. He's Dave Ayler. I'm Chris. We're with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Steve DiRocco, good morning. Steve DiRocco, the original rock. What is up? Take those headphones off. All right, who do I see in here? Robert Browning, good morning. Haven't seen you in a while, sir. Sam Tobias, Anthony Del Toro, Wes Perkins, Luisa Alanis, who joined us last night on Spurs React as well. Good morning, Luisa. Gabe Quintanilla, a.k.a. Gabe the Hammer Quintanilla. Good morning, Gabe. Beth Settle, who also joined us last night on Spurs React. Good morning, Beth. Marcus Valdespino, already some funny comments. Taro Kotani from Tokyo, Japan this morning, the greatest international Spurs fan. John Williams says good morning from Dallas. Oh, yeah, Robert Browning, who is a Saints fan. Wow, he says, Peyton to the Cowboys when hell freezes over. Anthony Del Toro. Haas Holding, professional wrestler. Haas Holding, who's Haas, when is your big title defense is coming up, isn't it? Yeah, Steve, it's going to be even worse tomorrow. Second night of a Spurs back-to-back tomorrow. And I'm wearing the Vote shirt because it's the first shirt I grabbed this morning. I know there are some elections coming up in March, so maybe I could say, hey, man, I'm already in the voting mood. Saturday night, this Saturday night, very cool, Haas Holding. Haas won a championship belt a couple of months ago, which is amazing because he's relatively new on the scene as a professional wrestler. And he was the oldest wrestler against a bunch of young dudes. And to win that belt was pretty spectacular. Joe Garcia, good morning. From Pueblo to Colorado Springs. Wow. It's got to be a little chilly this morning, making that drive from Pueblo to Colorado Springs. And Joe, as you know, from 1979 to 1981, I was at a military academy just north of Colorado Springs, marching in a straight line to lunch. Steve DiRocco was there. Steve DiRocco visited me. In fact, I think, we snuck Steve DiRocco and Flea Rodriguez into the dorms. Never supposed to do this. I was a discipline problem at the Air Force Academy. So when Steve DiRocco and Flea Rodriguez came to visit me, they crashed in the cadet dorms, which was cool. Let's see. Haas Holding this Saturday night at the historic Woodlawn Gym. Very, very cool, sir. I used to know the number specifically. And the academy a little higher than Colorado Springs, even though it's just north. It was like 7,480. I used to know. People would come visit us at the academy and pass out. Parents, because of the elevation, because you're more than a mile high. Amber, good morning. Jorge Villarreal, shout out to the Fox Tech Boys High School soccer team. My nephew is the goalie. Very cool. Are they having a good year? Are they winning? Either way, shout out to them. Buenos dias, Jason Paniagua. Working on the Cinco de Mayo show. The entire show will be en español. Muy bueno. Me gusta radio. I'm working on it. Yo necesito muchas cervezas, por favor. Dan Gonzalez, good morning. Welcome in. Amber says the Longhorns beat down TUC in basketball last night. TUC, well, TUC Most people don't even know about TUC. So to beat TUC is not that big a deal. I'm just saying. Oh, TCU. I keyed. Neff Ozuna. What is up? Go Spurs, go. Game day. Gabe the Hammer Quintanilla with the kudos to the Fox Tech boys soccer team. There's a line in the number 2 Dinners song, Downtown San Antonio, which goes, I said, oh, baby, what the heck? I'm graduating from Fox Tech, and we can get married sometime in June. Actual lyric. One of the greatest songs ever, called Downtown San Antonio by Los Number 2 Dinners, currently known as Los Number 3 Dinners. Yeah, I'm here. I am the typo police this morning, and I make more typos than anybody. Spurs can win 2 in a row, baby. In Pop we trust. That's why I'm wearing the Spurs hard hat. That's why I have Spurs glasses. Yeah, and last night on Spurs React, and again, I want to underscore, it's a minority of fans, but Spurs get a big win last night. They beat the Houston Rockets 134-104, and some dude comes on right away. Popovich sucks. It's like, really? He's about to have more wins than any coach in the history of the NBA. He brought us to 6 NBA finals. We won 5 of them. And oh, by the way, if not for Greg Popovich, and I can say this about David Robinson and George Gervin and Tim Duncan as well, but without Greg Popovich, the Spurs would no longer be here. And these spoiled, petulant Spurs fans bitching about the Spurs and bitching about Pop, and every time they do that, they just demonstrate their ignorance. Which is, and I just wasn't in the mood last night. I have an option on the live video feed. I can run, aka block. So as soon as I saw this idiot, top of Spurs React, Popovich sucks. Click. Thank you and bye-bye. I normally let trolls in. I normally let them hang themselves, but every so often I'm not in the mood. I try to be a nice guy, but every so often, if somebody comes in and is an absolute jerk, I do also have a jerk part of my psyche that I can tap into. I prefer not to, but occasionally. Marcus Valdespino says nobody has stopped Ja Morant all year. True, he's on fire, but with great peril comes great opportunity. Go Spurs. And oh, by the way, the Spurs have beaten Golden State this year. They've beaten Milwaukee this year. They've beaten Utah this year. They've beaten a lot of good teams. So Robert Browning in here. He will plant the Spurs flag. Thank you, Robert.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-9760.
Welcome back. Good morning. It is Wednesday. You are midway through the week. It is all downhill from here. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And let's see, Wednesday means Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 4 days away from the AFC and NFC championship games. I heard, and I know a lot of people say it, and Shannon was in here yesterday saying, Cincinnati Bengals are almost certainly going to lose to the Kansas City Chiefs. I heard Brady Quinn on the show before us, two pros and a cup of Joe, LeVar Arrington, Brady Quinn, the two pros, Joe being Jonas Knox. And Brady Quinn said, that was a great AFC championship game. He said, the way I see it, Bills versus Chiefs, that was the AFC championship game. And that's cool, Brady and everybody. I'm sure Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals are just taking notes and happy to be underdogs. And oh, by the way, and yes, I won't say almost certainly, I'll say strong probability the Chiefs will win and beat the Bengals. But the Bengals beat the Chiefs in December, late in the regular season. It ain't impossible. Couple of Mahomes turnovers that are uncharacteristic. And if Joe Burrow and the Bengals play their best game of the year, possible. I think if those two teams play 10 times, and they played once in December and the Bengals won, I think if they played 10 times, the Chiefs win 7 of them. So we'll see what happens on Sunday. But I just love people like Brady Quinn. Well, that was the AFC championship game. All right. I think they're still going to play a game on Sunday. Coming up, Scott MANDZIARA, a little around 20 minutes from now, a little over 20 minutes from now. We'll talk baseball. Lots going on in baseball. Big announcement yesterday regarding the Hall of Fame, a new inductee, only one, as a lot of the usual suspects are left out of the Baseball Hall of Fame. Roger Clemens, Pete Rose, Alex Rodriguez, and others. We'll talk about that with Scott. We'll talk about the baseball lockout. We'll talk about the Astros. We might talk about Dave Ehler and Scott's Cardinals. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe. We might. It could happen. Bill Schoening, voice of the San Antonio Spurs, just after 8 o'clock. 7 o'clock hour as well. Shannon Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays, a chance for you to win $1,000, grand in your hand cash contest at 7:20 and 8:20. But now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, here it is. We feel better when we are passing out high fives to those who are most deserving. It is time for our high five play of the day. High five play of the day, appropriately sponsored by High Five. 2 locations in the Austin area. They got everything you need as a human being and as a sports fan and as a player. Big screen TVs all over the place. Whatever sports you want to watch, you could watch the AFC and NFC championship games. You can watch NBA basketball, soccer, so much more. Great food, great drinks, food specials, drink specials, games you can play. 2 decks of bowling, laser tag, axe throwing, zombie dodgeball, golf, top golf-ish golf, and so much more. Shannon Salty Sweeney, who shall we give a high five to on this beautiful Wednesday morning?
Well, it's been a rough season for the San Antonio Spurs, and so we like to give them a high five whenever we can. And after last night's beatdown of the Houston Rockets, in-state rival, 134-104, we've got to give a high five to the San Antonio Spurs because they put on a great collective show, a great outing, 100% from the free throw line. 38 assists. They were great at moving the ball around. The Rockets only had 21. A great team effort. Their bench really helped them, and that's really where their lead became extended when the bench came in for San Antonio. It was a great collective performance, and with the game tonight against the Grizzlies back at home, once again, I think they can carry that momentum on. So we're going to give them a high five as they run out of the tunnel tonight in order to try to string another win together and get Pop that much closer to setting yet another record. Our high five today for the Spurs. And high five, it is Wednesday, so all night happy hour. So if you need a spot to watch Grizzlies versus Spurs tonight, that's a great spot to head to.
And I will point out that you, Shannon Salty Sweeney, a Dallas Mavericks fan, this was your idea.
Yes.
I credit you to give the Spurs a high five. I do believe, since we've been doing high five play of the day, this may very well be. I don't remember us giving a high five to the Spurs before, so it is much deserved. Granted, and I heard some people whining about this on Spurs React last night. Granted, Houston's not a very good team. You're supposed to beat the Houston Rockets.
But you didn't earlier in the season.
But as Michael Bartlett, right, yeah, on January 12th, Rockets won 128-124 here in San Antonio. So, but Michael Bartlett pointed out, to his credit, and Michael's obviously been on this show and works on Spurs React and the Spurs broadcast. You know who else beats teams they're supposed to beat? The Suns, the Milwaukee Bucks, the Philadelphia 7. It's what you're supposed to do. And the Spurs did it last night, and they won by 30, 134-104. And oh, by the way, that final 3 points was they jacked up a 3-point shot Houston did at the end. Otherwise, Spurs would have won it by 33 points last night. Points in the paint last night for the Spurs, 82 points in the paint. That ties the NBA high for points in the paint this year. That means you are working the ball inside. That means you are taking the ball to the hoop. That means you are being aggressive. That means you are rebounding and putting the ball back. That means you are scoring on fast break opportunities. Interestingly, though, the team previously, the only other team this year that got 82 points in the paint in the NBA is the Memphis Grizzlies. And they're the team that comes in with Ja Morant tonight. So a great test for the Spurs. I'm sure the Spurs are happy with the great test. And as I mentioned off the air a few minutes ago, Shannon, earlier in the year, Spurs beat the Warriors. They beat the Utah Jazz. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks. They've beaten some really, really good teams this year. And that's been one of the knocks on them. It seems like they play up to and play down to their opponents, but they did not do that last night, as you mentioned, with a runaway win at Houston against the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, and hopefully they'll take that game plan from last night and bring it over. Hopefully, they do need to clean up the turnovers a little bit. They fouled quite a bit, but if they can keep working that ball inside and out, getting all of his assists and allowing you to get those easy buckets in the paint, 82, I think they'll be okay tonight.
And throughout this season, as we do give a high five to the Spurs here, Shannon, DeJounte Murray just has been absolutely phenomenal. Lots of double-doubles, lots of triple-doubles. He is soon this season going to break, in all probability, the Spurs team record for triple-doubles held by some dude named David Robinson. He was pretty good, as I recall. And you mentioned Greg Popovich as well. The magic number is now 8. In fact, I might start bringing it in. I do have it home, Shannon, and I haven't busted it out this year. I do have a Holy Gregory Charles Popovich prayer candle. So it might be time to bust out the prayer candle.
It might
for
be
Greg Popovich to get those 8 more wins. So good for him. And as we've talked about, I just can't wait to see his reaction, which we predict to be a non-reaction when he sets the record, because he's not about accolades. He's not about self-aggrandizement. He's about coaching basketball. So and we have been so blessed, Shannon, and Spurs fans are so complacent. Not all of us, but it's hard not to be. You get used to something. And we're used to Greg Popovich as the coach of the Spurs. That ain't going to last forever. Just like the dynasty, just like the Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker era did not last forever. The George Gervin era, the David Robinson era did not last forever. And some Spurs fans having a hard time with a team that is now 18-30, going through difficulty, but going through what every single team in all of sports, in the history of sports, and pick any great team now that is on top of the world. Kansas City Chiefs, in basketball, Phoenix Suns, Milwaukee Bucks, in baseball, New York Yankees, LA Dodgers. Pick any team that's on top of the world. They will also go through this in short order. And the question and the key and the mission for the Spurs is to find the way to climb the mountain again And with players like DeJounte Murray and Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell and the new 19-year-old now came in at the beginning of the year at age 18, Josh Primo. As I watch this team, Shannon, and the record is not impressive by any means at 18-30. But when I watch how this team plays, I think they're in the right direction, and I actually think they're a little bit ahead of schedule.
When looking at the stats from last night, one of my favorite things is not only was it a beatdown for the Spurs over the Rockets, but you look at the way the points were spread out. 8 players on the Spurs roster were in double digits. You don't have a LeBron James, a Steph Curry, who if they are not on, then it's probably going to be a loss because they're not putting up their 30, 40 points each and every night. You've got a nice kind of even-keeled, even spread. And again, mention those 38 assists. Take that, what you did last night, apply it to the game tonight against the Grizzlies. And again, I think it'll be another win column, and we'll change that magic number for Pop to 7.
Yes, and obviously the Grizzlies are phenomenal this year. Ja Morant, you could make the argument that he's not only all-star, easily all-star numbers, but maybe MVP numbers for Ja Morant. You look at the impact he has on the Memphis Grizzlies, and Shannon, I'm looking at the Western Conference standings. They're in the number 3 slot. I don't think a lot of people expected that. I think people expected the Grizzlies to be above 500, maybe be a 5, 6, 7 team, to be at number 3, ahead of the Lakers and LeBron. Lakers are 24-24 and even 500, ahead of the Clippers. Now, granted, Kawhi Leonard has been out, but ahead of the Clippers, ahead of the Denver Nuggets, who are very good, ahead of your Dallas Mavericks, and ahead of the Utah Jazz. It is Phoenix at number 1 in the West, followed by Golden State, 3 games behind Phoenix, followed by Memphis. Memphis is 32-17. They're 6.5 behind Phoenix. The Memphis Grizzlies are kind of quietly, but not that quiet if you're paying attention to the NBA this year. They're one of the contenders in the NBA. And, you don't think of the Grizzlies as a team that might go to the finals. Going into the season, we thought Lakers, we thought Suns, because they had just been there. A lot of us are now thinking Golden State Warriors, getting Klay Thompson back. Almost nobody at the beginning of the year, everybody go, yeah, Ja Morant, he's really good. But nobody thought Memphis could be a contender for the NBA Finals. I think they are. Mm-hmm. Don't be shocked if Memphis goes deep in the Western Conference playoffs, and don't be surprised if they show up in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, to me, the Grizzlies, especially just as a market, they feel very much like a San Antonio Spurs to me, in that they can go under the radar because of that. And when your superstar is a young gun like Ja Morant, he doesn't carry the same weight as everyone you mentioned from the Suns or Warriors and the Lakers. They can kind of get away with that. And, again, I think they're a good matchup tonight for the Spurs, considering how the Spurs played last night. But they're definitely a team to watch going into the back half of the season. And the Lakers currently number 8 at 24-24. Just talked about the Houston Rockets. There's rumor now that LeBron James is wanting to ship Russell Westbrook back to the Rockets. Of course, he was most recently with Washington. But do it for Mr. John Wall. Make a little switcheroo there. If I'm Russell Westbrook, I might be crying right now. Right, I'm back home. I'm in LA. There were billboards.
That's true.
There was hype. Oh, this is gonna be it. This is the squad. And now my buddy, who I thought was a good friend of mine and teammate, wants to ship me back to the place that I vocalized that I needed to get away from just a handful of years ago, and a place that right now Rockets in last place in the West. It's not looking good. I don't think a Russell Westbrook is the key to change it. I almost feel bad for the guy. I almost feel like like the legacy we thought we were going to see from him. There's no chance of him ever getting it. Probably never getting a ring. He probably should just stayed with the Thunder for his entire career.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Thunder, Shannon. Look at his 3 opportunities. When he was with the Thunder, they had Kevin Durant, James Harden, and him. They had other guys like Serge Ibaka. They should have won a championship with that lineup. Then he goes to Houston. James Harden shows up. Houston had a really good roster, it seemed, but could not put it together. Then you go to L.A. with Anthony Davis and LeBron James, and it's a debacle there. My God, Russell Westbrook. I wonder if he's the problem. I mean, what's the consistent factor here? Yeah. I mean, look in the mirror, Russell Westbrook. Maybe something's going on, dude. All right, coming up, we'll dive a little bit into baseball. The big story of the day yesterday, who is in, who is out of the Baseball Hall of Fame class of 2022 in Cooperstown. We'll talk a little bit about the lockout. Where are we? And we'll talk Houston Astros baseball as well. Scott MANDZIARA, one of our baseball gurus, coming at us in a moment. Don't go anywhere. It's the Chris Duel Show. Oh, that's loud. Yeah, Gabe, I will bring the Greg Popovich holy prayer candle. It is time. And it is also time for Spurs fans. And again, it's the minority of Spurs fans, but I just, I see so many and hear so many. And, on shows like Spurs React, have to contend with so many that are just so negative and unappreciative. All right, let me see here. I need to edit some spots. I'll do that in a sec. Bill Schoening coming up. Do I have a Scott MANDZIARA photo? I don't think I do. Maybe I need to do that. I do not have a Scott MANDZIARA photo. I don't think, well, let's see what I can do here. You need to look at Scott MANDZIARA when we have him on the show, correct? All right, now. I'm working on getting Scott on our screen. There he is. Check. Make sure I have his Twitter at SManziera2. Is that right? It is. All right, let's see what we can do here. Now, we have a Scott Mandziara photo. There he is. Woo! Wes Perkins, many young players on the Spurs starting to shine. Will be interesting who is re-signed, who is not in the offseason. Yeah, and Wes, you get it. The Spurs have a plan, and the Spurs know what they're doing, and there's a lot of young talent on this team, and the Spurs decided to go in this direction, and I think it was a pretty good decision. Scott Mandziara in a moment. Thank you, sir. Woo! Woo! John Williams, I got your Scott MANDZIARA photo too late. I already posted that other one, but thank you. Appreciate the effort. Jorge says the Austin Rays make it. See, I think Austin and San Antonio need to join forces, build a stadium at Buc-ee's Stadium, capitalize on the market.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, yeah.
Now, Chris Duel.
It is Wednesday. We are halfway home, halfway through this week. And of course, your reward for making it through the weekend shall be NFL Championship football. AFC and NFC Championship game on Sunday. Although, excuse me, Brady Quinn says the AFC Championship game was last Sunday night between the Bills and the Chiefs. No need to watch Bengals coming to Arrowhead on Sunday, at least according to Notre Damer Brady Quinn. And of course, as a USC Trojan, Shannon, I don't like me no Notre Dame people. Just saying. It's sports hate. I'm sure there are fine graduates of Notre Dame University in South Bend, Indiana. I don't want to cast aspersions on the entire university.
No. Yeah, my great-grandfather played football there, so there's that.
Woo!
He was no bigger than I am.
My
so
favorite thing.
Old school.
Quick story, and then we'll bring on Scott MANDZIARA. We've talked before about fans and crazy things they do. USC plays Notre Dame every year, either home or away, either at South Bend, Indiana, or at the Coliseum at USC. And for years and years and years, there was a USC alum, like a rather wealthy guy, who would get tickets on the Notre Dame side of the Coliseum, dress like a nun. So he'd walk, and people, oh, hello, sister. Oh, hello. He'd dress like a nun. He would sit down, start drinking heavily, smoke a cigar, and swear like a drunken sailor every time Notre Dame made a mistake. Ah, you dirty, filthy bleep and bleep, bleep, bleep. And people were just appalled. And he did it. It was like it was a shtick. He did it every year. And there were always unsuspecting Notre Dame fans around Sister Mary Elephant or whatever his name was.
That's one of those things that isn't illegal, but feels illegal when you're witnessing it.
True, but as a USC fan, I second that emotion. All right, big day yesterday in Major League Baseball. Hall of Fame announcement, and whenever this happens, part of the big story is who is not getting into Cooperstown into the Hall of Fame. You've also got a lot going on with Major League Baseball as well with the lockout. And hey, man, we're moving into February. Shouldn't pitchers and catchers be getting ready to unofficially / officially start this season? One of our favorite baseball go-to guys, the former voice of UIW Athletics here in San Antonio, was a big part of this show for some time as well. St. Louis broadcaster, now back in his native St. Louis, Scott MANDZIARA. Scott, how are you doing this morning?
What's up, Chris? What's up, Shannon? It's so good to talk to you. When you bring up Joe Burrow, I know we're starting off with football here real quick. Do you remember this, Chris? I mean, think about how long ago I was in San Antonio, which was only a couple of years now. But the day after Joe Burrow got taken #1 overall, do you remember that show? We had Jacoby Stevens on, who he won the national championship with, to talk about what he thought Joe Burrow would be. And now here we are talking about Joe Burrow and the AFC championship. I mean, it's so crazy and so cool to see how his rise has come. But it just got me thinking all nostalgic when you brought up Joe Burrow and me being back at Ticket 760.
Yeah, and you, for listeners who recall, you're a huge LSU fan. You have touted the virtues of Joe Burrow long before he became an NFL quarterback. We talked a lot of Joe Burrow on this show. But, Scott, I don't want to bury the lead, and I should have opened with this. Sir, you and your lovely wife are new parents. Lindsay Michelle MANDZIARA made her appearance on this earth on Elvis's birthday. Now Lindsay Michelle's birthday, January 8th, 2022. Congratulations, Dad, Mr. MANDZIARA. Way to go, dude.
Hey, thank you, Chris. Oh my gosh, it was a very long process to get to meet her, and it was it was everything that we could have hoped for, and she is doing amazing. She's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my whole life. Her and my mom, or her mom, are doing absolutely fantastic. She's 18 days old now, which is crazy. I feel like I'm about to have a month-old baby. I was joking around with Dave that I don't get a lot of sleep, but Lindsay's mom is just doing an awesome job at allowing me to go back to work. So she really has been staying up with her a lot over the night. But yeah, she's doing amazing. I appreciate the congratulations.
Now, Scott, you got to get them while they're young. So does she have all the appropriate sports onesies at the ready?
So her mom and my in-laws are huge Chiefs fans. So they got her some Chiefs onesies. But the funny thing is that she was born like on time, 7 pounds 6 ounces, and she does not fit in newborn stuff still. So she got all this Chiefs like newborn stuff. We're gonna put her in the outfits for the Chiefs games, and she just doesn't fit. So like when you put like oversized clothes on a baby, it looks hilarious. But they can't keep wearing it. So we're going to miss out on the opportunity for her to wear those unless the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, and then she'll probably fit in them at that point.
All right, Scott, now let me ask you, because now we'll tie this together and we will get into baseball. But you mentioned Joe Burrow, and I've been saying to Shannon, even before these playoffs began, because I'm an old guy, I remember when Joe Montana broke big in the NFL in the 81 season, where on January 10th, 1982, they beat the Cowboys, the catch to Dwight Clark. Niners, people don't remember, were 6-10 the previous year, but all of a sudden we found out who Joe Montana was in the NFL. He went to Notre Dame, by the way. And then he was off and running with a Hall of Fame career. I've told Shannon I'm beginning to feel that about Joe Burrow, that there's something special, something magical about him, and that he is moving into elite status, into top 5 quarterback status in the NFL. Now, you mentioned all the Kansas City Chief fans in your family. How cocky I know a lot of people saying AFC Championship game was played last Sunday night. How cocky, how confident, or how concerned are you that Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals, who beat the Chiefs in December, are coming to Arrowhead this Sunday?
Oh, man. And I know the Chiefs fans get some bad reps about being like cocky and things like that. I can tell you all the Chiefs fans that I know are very worried. Joe Burrow did already beat the Chiefs this year. The secondary for the Chiefs looked terrible without Tyrann Mathieu last week. He was out for the whole game after that first drive. So if he's out, I mean, Jamar Chase had over 200 yards receiving against them the last time they played. He could do it again easily. I really do believe that the Bengals actually have a chance against the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense is just not very good, and the Bengals offense is on freaking fire. But how about Joe Burrow, Chris? I mean, his career, like, it's going to be one of the best movies. It's going to be like a Kurt Warner movie, I bet, at the end of his career. I mean, he was at Ohio State, couldn't get the starting job. The Buckeyes picked Justin Fields over him, transfers to LSU. His first year at LSU, he stinks. As a diehard LSU fan, I was like, this guy needs to get out of here. He's horrible. Second year, absolutely turns it on to the max, wins a national championship, gets the #1 overall pick. They were terrible in his first year. He got hurt. Everyone doubted Zach Taylor as a head coach of the Bengals. His second year, he comes back, makes the AFC championship. I mean, he's got like one of the best storybook careers right now. And this is only adding on to it.
Scott, switching gears to baseball now. The big story yesterday, of course, the reveal of the Baseball Hall of Fame voting. And before we get to all the names that didn't make it in, and specifically didn't make it in during their final shot to get in to that illustrious Hall of Fame, the one guy who did make it in, and probably not a surprise, David Ortiz. He seems to be pretty widely beloved. Talk about his career and why he's so deserving of this honor.
Oh man, it's so cool to see Big Papi make it. I mean, he's like one of those names that even the average baseball fan, or maybe not even the average baseball fan, you know exactly who he is. You know who he played for his entire career. You know all of his amazing World Series postseason accomplishments, especially in 2013 when he was locked in and beat my beloved Cardinals. But his career was just so cool. He had some awesome players that he played with, but every single time that he was on the field, he headlined that team. Regardless if it was with Manny Ramirez, Dustin Pedroia, Curt Schilling, like the Red Sox were David Ortiz, and that was him. Jason Varitek, you could add to that list. I mean, the Red Sox had so much talent, but it was always, always, always centered around David Ortiz. He's one of the most beloved players in baseball, and for him to be a first ballot was really cool to see.
Talking baseball with Scott MANDZIARA. Scott, as Shannon mentioned, whenever we get more people into the Baseball Hall of Fame, one of the big stories is who did not get in. Once again, no Barry Bonds, no Roger Clemens, Pete Rose. A lot of people talk about Pete Rose banned for life and not going into the Hall of Fame. I wonder, and I know, baseball is all about tradition. Although Shannon told me about robot umpires coming to AAA baseball this coming season. But from your perspective, and you're more of a baseball fan and devotee and purist, I think, than we are. And that's one of the reasons we love talking baseball with you and Mike Harge, who played the game professionally as well, because you guys just love the game of baseball. Is baseball doing the right thing by keeping these guys out of the Hall of Fame, or would you like to see a different approach?
I was really disappointed that Barry Bonds didn't get in specifically yesterday. I really was, even though I understand the storylines behind his career and steroids or PEDs that is centering around. And the bottom line is that he's a historical figure of the game. If you want to snub him the first 9 years, okay. But 10th year, I mean, he got the most votes that he's got. He missed out by 36, and you had 6 ballots that were turned in empty. But it's really, really, really hard for me to stomach the fact that, the MLB's all-time home run leader, Barry Bonds, not a Hall of Famer. Their all-time hits leader, Pete Rose, not a Hall of Famer. All-time Cy Young leader, Roger Clemens, not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. It's really tough for me to think about now. We talked about me being a parent. How am I going to explain to my, 16-year-old daughter that I hope and pray that she's a huge baseball fan like me, that these guys aren't in the Hall of Fame? How am I supposed to explain that? Because there is a situation that they did, and they broke the rules. But I feel like society, and Chris, I'm sure you probably agree with this. You have the biggest heart of anybody that I've ever met. There's this thing where people make mistakes, and then we forgive them, and then we turn into loving them. Tiger Woods is the perfect example of this. Everybody loves Tiger Woods now. And no matter how many, the bad things that he did previously, he got in this car accident, everyone's rooting for him to come back. That's what society does. You forgive people. And when MLB added new voters through the BBWWAA or whatever, those 36 people that they just added, 88% of the people that they added voted for Bonds this time around. So if you waited not just 10 years, you waited to that 15-year mark, Barry Bonds gets into the Hall of Fame. So I really hope that through some of these alternative votings that they're going to do, they'll be able to turn this around. But yeah, I was really disappointed by yesterday.
Scott, Roger Clemens, a guy that Texas area folks and even Texas fans know pretty well thanks to his sons coming through the 40 acres. He released a statement yesterday, and part of it, he said, "My family and I put the Hall of Fame in the rearview mirror 10 years ago." How much do you believe that versus how much he maybe did want to get into the Hall of Fame? He's one of those guys, 10th year, he didn't make it. So now if that dream was alive in him at all, it's dead.
Right, and I think Roger Clemens is a little bit different than Barry Bonds, just in the sense of, just who he kind of was as a player. I mean, he's being a pitcher, like you definitely get great accolades, like Nolan Ryan gets with a lot of the fans, especially in Texas. But for his situation, a lot of the players that come out and say that, I know fans might say, okay, that's total bogus, but I do believe them, because there's a lot of players when I've been in the locker room the last couple of years. You talk to them about their accolades or records they break. Most of the time, they generally say that it's like, oh yeah, I didn't even know that, or oh, that doesn't mean a lot to me. And sometimes you think, oh, are they telling the truth, or oh, are they being modest? But some of these players, they did a lot of things for what he said, which was to create generational wealth for my family. Are they bummed that they're not in the Hall of Fame? Yes, 100%. Him coming out and making that statement, still interesting, but I do believe him for the most part for what he said, and especially how fast he got it out there. It wasn't written like a lawyer wrote it or his agent wrote it. It looked like straight up he literally went on his notes on his iPhone, typed it out, and then tweeted it.
Scott MANDZIARA talking baseball with us for a moment, though, right now at 7:20. Let's take a quick timeout. Time for the Grand in Your Hand cash contest. We do this all day long from 7:20 to 6:20 p.m. on the 20s. Somebody wins $1,000 every hour. It could be you. Here comes the keyword.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website, bank. That's bank. Enter it on our station website now.
Bank. That's your keyword. Take it to either or, and we suggest both websites to double your chance to win. AM1300thezone.com and ticket760.com. Talking baseball with Scott MANDZIARA, one of our favorite go-to baseball guys, St. Louis broadcaster who, of course, had a great history down here in South and Central Texas as the voice of the UIW Cardinals. Should it be, Scott? And I mean, isn't this a compromise? At Cooperstown, you got the big plaques that the bronze plaques where you see the likeness of the player, and there's a big multiple paragraph description of their career. Would it be awful to have Pete Rose and Roger Clemens and Barry Bonds and others, and it's a museum, it's the Hall of Fame. Why not list all of their accolades? And you just listed a lot of them for some of these players, and then go ahead and say, there was this controversy about Pete Rose. He was accused of, betting on baseball. I mean, that way they're deserving, and yet you can still tell the story if you want to tell the story. Would that be something you would be open to?
Absolutely. Anything that would get them into the Hall of Fame. Because think about this, Chris. Have you ever been to the Baseball Hall of Fame?
I have not. It's on my bucket list. I have not. I want to go, man.
Yeah, no, and I'm the same way. I have not been to Cooperstown to get to see it, but if I did make the trip, I would love to see that, because for me, I'm 25-year-old guy, like Barry Bonds was throughout my childhood, was the guy, the Hank Aaron, the Willie Mays. I would love to see that in Cooperstown, rather than see whoever else is in there is going to be awesome. But for me, the one guy I think of as the best baseball player ever in my lifetime so far, Barry Bonds. And the way that the voting process works is really just outdated, for lack of a better word. Because you think about how much, the process is the baseball writers get to vote on it. And if it was up to the MLB still gave him 7 MVPs, right? That, they still showed that he was the best player 7 times in 7 different years. So it's not like the MLB, even though he had those, bad stories around him about steroids, PEDs, all that stuff, they still gave him the awards. So I feel like if it's up to the MLB, they would have said, hey, we put this guy in. But since, we have baseball writers, and a lot of them, are old school. They're like, no. So I wanted to share this stat with you, Chris, because I think it's absolutely insane. If Bonds were to return to the major leagues this year, he would have to make 1,412 straight outs. So 0 for 1,412 to drop his on-base percentage below 400.
Wow. That's crazy. Crazy
Isn't that
stat.
nuts?
Yep.
Scott, since we've got
that's
you.
how good he was, man.
Oh, go ahead. Okay.
No, go ahead, Shannon. Sorry.
Scott, since we've got you, we are closing out on January, heading into February. Wanted to get some insight on where we are with this current MLB lockout, what you might know, and if you're feeling like we're getting closer to knowing that if we'll play Major League Baseball this year.
So here's the good news. The labor talks are happening. Like, they're actually meeting with each other. They met with each other back-to-back days, which is an awesome, awesome thing. Now, did we make significant progress back-to-back days? No. But they're talking. If you guys remember in 2020, they would have a conversation, and then they'd walk in, talk for 6 minutes, and then say, all right, see you next month. Like, they literally wouldn't talk for, weeks. And that is when you start to panic, especially, like Chris said at the beginning of the show, it's January 26th. We're getting close to, everyone needs to start reporting to spring training. I mean, at this point, Shannon, it's undoubtedly that we're going to have a shortened spring training. We're not going to see 30 games or 28 games, whatever you normally see in spring training. It's going to be shorter. But, if we get to mid-February, if 2 or 3 weeks we talk again and there's still no deal, we might not see spring training. That is going to affect a lot of players, because there's so many, including your guys' prize man in Houston, Carlos Correa, who haven't even signed with a team. So this guy's probably living, in his mansion, wondering where the heck he's going to play next year. And, as the longer that goes out, I mean, that less negotiating power for him. He might have to sign a 1-year deal. He might stay with Houston. So there's a lot of storylines that surround it. I do think that we're still at a point where I don't think we're going to miss any regular season games, but spring training is getting close to being in jeopardy.
Scott MANDZIARA, a great follow online at SMandziara2. And again, Scott, congratulations to you, your wife, your entire family on the January 8th birth of Lindsay Michelle MANDZIARA. I know you're already raising her well to be a baseball and a football fan. We're so happy for you. And as baseball season gets closer and as this lockout story heats up, as we get closer to those dates that things are supposed to be happening in the world of Major League Baseball, we will talk again. Thank you, sir, for taking the time, and we'll talk again real soon. Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks, Shannon. Love talking to you guys. Stay well, and I look forward to talking to you soon.
Outstanding. A sleep-deprived Scott MANDZIARA as a new dad. See, Shannon, I don't have to be a dad, and I'm already sleep-deprived because you and I work on the morning show. You and I wake up at 3:30 in the morning, so we can skip the fatherhood, motherhood thing and just still be sleep-deprived. So we're all good.
Or we could say we're prepared should the day ever come, right?
True. It could still happen for you. It could. I kind of missed the boat on that, but I voluntarily missed that boat. But I'm happy for Scott. I'm happy for people who just love parenthood. So good for Scott MANDZIARA. Very, very good guy. Coming up, Shannon's Salty Shakedown is moments away. We've got this day in sports history and sports birthdays. And coming up just after 8 o'clock on a Spurs game day game night, on a day that we gave a high five to the Spurs for their blowout win over the Houston Rockets. Can the Spurs make it 2 in a row against one of the best teams in the NBA this year, the Memphis Grizzlies? We'll talk about that with the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening, just after 8 o'clock. Lots coming at you. Dave OEHLER, your Soundscape stylist. She's the salty one. I'm Chris. Till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Scott MANDZIARA. All right, let's see here. I got my sports history and my sports birthdays ready to go. Woo! Woo, woo, woo. Joe Garcia heading out. Joe, if you're still here, thanks for joining us. I don't know. I hope I'm the favorite uncle, John, but I don't know. I think I am that weird uncle that they talk about. Wes Perkins, conflicted on Bonds, Clemens, Rose, and others. Their accolades are worthy, but what message does it send to young players if you can cheat and it becomes okay? Forgive, not forget. Wes, great point, sir. And you educate young people. I would I think a compromise is you tell their story. You put them in the Hall of Fame, but you on the plaque that will outlive them, you say, hey, here are the issues that Major League Baseball had with these guys. But I think ultimately Hall of Fame is not necessarily Hall of Nice or Hall of Angels. I hear like Ty Cobb was a horrible guy in real life. I don't know, man. And I'm not totally adamant one way or another. I could probably be swayed one way or another on that. I'm going to get some Ice Baby for my Pure Leaf iced tea. In fact, I might even nuke my coffee while I'm at it. I'll be back in a sec. Yeah, Gabe Quintanilla, a great lawyer and a great judge, the Hammer, says there should be middle ground somewhere in this baseball controversy. Yeah, and Scott made the point about forgiveness. There's something to be said about that as well. Thanks, man. All right. We did have Hall of Shame. That's a great point. I forgot about that. John, I haven't done that in over a year, but we did have our very own Hall of Shame. John Williams with the North Texas Winter Weather Advisory. I want spring to arrive, please. Can we get some freaking spring? You're right, Jason. Super freak of the week. People haven't been as freaky as I would hope. But we'll work on that. With our patron saint, Rick James.
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
You can tweet at us, as Dude with the Voice says. We shall respond to your tweets. You can also join us on the phone lines. You want to jump in here, talk sports, or talk about whatever we are covering, or if you got something we should be covering in the world of sports. 800-707-9760 is the phone number. Lots of people join us on the live video feed. Multiple ways you can get in there. YouTube is one way in. Occasionally lately, Facebook has been ejecting us when sometimes accidentally the music seeps through. So if you can't find us on Facebook Live, which is one way to do it, there's always YouTube and there is Twitter. There is a live Twitter feed as well, both at Ticket 760 and at AM 1300 The Zone. Coming up at just after 8 o'clock, 8:05-ish, 8:06, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs on a Spurs game day / game night. Spurs playing a back-to-back. They won big in Houston last night. We talked about it, 134-104. They take on a very good Memphis Grizzlies team tonight at the AT&T Center. We'll talk all things Spurs. Bill Schoening, just such a breadth of sports knowledge. Probably talk NFL playoffs with Bill as well. We tend to get into the Texas Longhorns, a story involving the Horns and TCU last night, and some fan ugliness that we will get into here in a little bit as well. Lots to cover. Of course, we talked a lot, and we'll talk more about Sean Payton, the former head coach of the New Orleans Saints, what may be next for him. All kinds of things going on, both on the field in the NFL, off the field with coaching changes, NBA, college hoops, Major League Baseball. We just talked at length with Scott Mandziara. Shannon's Salty Shakedown is moments away. But first, how about some sports birthdays and this day in sports history? This day in 1913, Jim Thorpe forced to relinquish his 1912 Olympic medals for having played 2 seasons of semi-professional baseball before competing in the Olympics. Those gold medals were reinstated after his death, which drives me a little crazy when people get into Hall of Fames, when they should have gotten it when they were alive, and Jim Thorpe should have enjoyed his Olympic gold medals that were taken away from him after his death. This day in 1976, it was the NFL Pro Bowl at the Louisiana Superdome. AFC beat the NFC 23-20, and your MVP was Billy White Shoes Johnson of the Houston Oilers. One of my favorites as a kid. Dave Ayler, I'm seeing you smile. You got to be pretty old to remember Billy White Shoes Johnson and his great end zone touchdown celebrations. Do you remember him?
Wasn't it the funky chicken or something that he did?
Yeah, he would kind of like knock his knees together. It looked like the funky chicken. Yeah, he was great. And one of the early, along with Elmo Wright, wide receiver of the Kansas City Chiefs, one of the early pioneers of the end zone celebrations that are now a staple in the NFL. They were kind of rare back in Billy White Shoes Johnson's day. This day in 1986, Super Bowl 20, that was also at the Superdome in New Orleans. The Chicago Bears beat down the New England Patriots 46-10. Your MVP is Richard Dent. And yes, William the Refrigerator Perry scored a touchdown for the Chicago Bears. This day in 1991, Kansas City Chiefs kicker Jan Stenerud became the first pure place kicker to make it into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And this one will take you back 2 years, and it is so sad. On this day in 2020, LA Lakers basketball legend Kobe Bryant and 7 others, including his daughter Brianna, die in a helicopter crash in foggy conditions in the hills above Calabasas, California. Kobe Bryant, considered one of the greatest players in the game's history, and that just a shocking tragedy to us all. We might bring that up with Bill Schoening. That was a Spurs game day on a Sunday. I remember walking in and hearing the news from Michael Bartlett, and Bill Schoening obviously was shocked by the news, as were the Spurs that day. That's 2 years ago today, the tragic death of Kobe Bryant. That's your sports history. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1935, Bob Uecker, who was a catcher in Major League Baseball with the Milwaukee Braves, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Phillies, and the Braves, but became known, and he was kind of a mediocre player, maybe a little better than mediocre, but not a superstar, became known as a self-deprecating broadcaster with the Milwaukee Brewers. He was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Happy birthday to Bob Uecker. Also born on this day in 1961, the great one, Wayne Gretzky, Hockey Hall of Famer, maybe the greatest hockey player to ever play. Stanley Cup winner in 84, 85, 87, 88. MVP 1980 through 87 and 89. Just if I read all of his accolades, we'd be here till noon. Wayne Gretzky was born in Brantford, Ontario. Finally, born on this day in 1977, Vince Carter, long time NBA player. Vince Carter, known for Vinsanity, which was a phenomenon in the Vince Carter career. Vince Carter, born in Daytona Beach, Florida. Those are your sports birthdays. That's your sports history. And now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, farm animals, pole assassins, and monkeys, here it is, your midweek Wednesday Salty Shakedown.
All right, Chris, we've talked a lot about the Chiefs and Bills game, and rightfully so, because it was fantastic. Received great numbers, one of the most watched divisional games in recent years. And something that I don't, not to say that it deserves more attention, but because the game itself was so incredible, no one really hung on to it as much as maybe we would have for a different game. But during the game, there was an intruder. There was a fan who took from the stands to take to the field. He was actually tackled by Stephon Diggs before security got over there, finally pulled him away and arrested him. But we now know the origin of this particular field intruder. If we recall, the last Super Bowl, a man ran onto the field and I think was a pink swimsuit. He had actually placed a bet on the odds in favor of there being someone storming the field. This guy, though, did it for $1,000 from his friend. Now, Chris, this is not a good friend. First of all, you see in this TikTok video that they are sitting very high up. So already that's a no for me. The effort I got to put in just to get down there alone, no thank you. 2, in the video, the gentleman who does end up running onto the field, the 20-year-old who's being filmed and is asked by his friend for $1,000, would you run onto the field? The guy who seems already like he's had maybe one too many starts saying, would I run onto the field, possibly get banned from an NFL stadium, and possibly get arrested, right? It's like he's weighing the options. You don't really see him commit to it, but cut to, he does end up doing the deed, taking to the field, again, getting tackled by Stephon Diggs in the process. He was then arrested and has now been charged with a municipal charge. So he could be paying a lot more than that $1,000 that his friend now owes him. Chris, we've talked about this before. It's just not worth it. But yet there are still people who seem to do this. And this poor guy, I was with him. I was like, you're doing all the right things. You're weighing the pros and cons. You're saying you're $1,000. You should have said no. That's not even enough to bail me out of jail. But he does it anyway, Chris. When will people learn? When will people learn?
When I was a kid, Shannon, I'll never forget, and old people may remember this. Some Yahoo ran onto the field in the early 70s, a Baltimore Colts playoff game against the Miami Dolphins. Colts had a linebacker named Mike Curtis. Mike Curtis, number 32, ran at and clocked this guy running onto the field, sent him tumbling like a rag doll. Now, that was the 70s. If a player, I don't know how hard Stephon Diggs tackled this guy. Today, somebody would probably sue and try to get a lot of money from the NFL player who hurt them. But I don't know when they're going to learn, Shannon. I just think the league and municipalities need to make this really punitive, arrest mandatory, big fine the hell out of them. And again, we live in such an era of narcissism. People want to make things about me. It's like, you know what? I'm here to watch Chiefs and Bills. I don't want to watch some drunk idiot from the top row run onto the field. So, yeah, I'm sick of it, and nail these people to the wall legally. I'd be okay with that.
Well, and to the guy who ran on the field, you need to not be friends with the guy who bet you that $1,000 and encouraged you to run onto the field. That's not a good friend right there, if you ask me. All right, Chris, Australian Open is going on. Of course, the big headline was Novak Djokovic, and him, will he, won't he, COVID, this, that, the other. Finally was decided he would not be part of the tournament and left the country. So we've got a new star of the tournament. He's actually homegrown, an Australian himself, and at the age of 26, Nick Kyrgios has become the star of really more of what he's done in between sets during the Australian Open. Last week, he made headlines after winning his match to open the Australian Open. And he was going over to fans. He was signing autographs. He was taking selfies. And he was doing all this without a mask, which, okay, whatever. But then he takes a sip of a fan's beer. And now the beer was being offered to him. But you can see him stop and puzzle and think. And then he still takes that sip anyway. I mean, could that have been an international incident had he had, taken that sip and then contracted COVID? I mean, what? How do you not prove that that's where he got it from? So that was incident number one. Then just earlier this week, he was in a doubles match, wasn't going well. Out of frustration, he hit a wild ball. It went straight to the stands and hit a small child in the stomach. Probably lost some breath there for a little bit. The child instantly crying, the little boy being consoled by his parents. He had the ball in his hands. Nick immediately, you could see it on his face, realized, that wasn't the best move. Went over to his bag, grabbed a spare racket and gave it to the kid and put a smile on his face. But what was most interesting to me was after the fact of this going down, he was, of course, interviewed, and the interviewer asked about it. And he was afraid that he would be defaulted because of that. That was his first thought. Am I going to be defaulted? Not, man, I really just hit that kid in the stomach and he is not a happy camper right now. Nick, you're great for the sport of tennis, right? We love the drama. I think that's something that tennis needs, more eyeballs. But calm down. don't turn into what Novak Djokovic has kind of become of the guy who is in the headlines for all of the wrong reasons. Be a good sport and pay attention to where you hit those crazy balls. Chris, have you ever been to a baseball game or anything like that, or a basketball game where someone's like flown into the stands and hurt somebody, or a wild ball, wild pitch, whatever has caused some harm to anyone?
Never when I was in the building. Obviously, we've seen that on TV many times, and it can be ugly. And, in baseball, people have lost their lives, which is horribly tragic. But now on the drinking the beer, I'm a big fan of beer on a certain level. I get it. But pre-pandemic, maybe you drink that beer, but I agree with you. You don't know where the original drinker of the beer has been.
Yeah.
I don't think you want his saliva or DNA in your system. Not a good idea. And hopefully all athletes on every level, even like, youth, like a softball game, a company softball game, you don't hit the ball into the stands on purpose or throw it or any. I mean, when you can hurt other people, especially kids, that should be a lesson for all of us. Not good. Don't do it ever.
Yeah. You mentioned that beer. I don't even think pre-pandemic I would advise anyone to drink from a stranger. That's but it's a personal choice and one that he made. All right, finally today, Chris, the All-Star break is coming up. It's going to be a great one, and there's some revamping that's going on. The Rising Star Challenge often gets lost. It's always the first event on the Friday of All-Star Weekend, and it features rising stars and rookies of the league. But this year they're changing it. Instead of a game, they're doing it tournament style, Chris. It'll feature 4 teams with 7 players each in a 3-game mini tournament. It'll be a total of 24 first and second year players that'll be selected by NBA assistant coaches. 4 players from the G League Ignite team will also be selected by G League head coaches. And the coaching staff will be specifically made up of members from the 75th anniversary team announced earlier this season. And prior to the final game of this mini tournament, there will also be a shooting competition, which, of course, because it is the NBA All-Star Weekend, everything's got a sponsor, will be the Clorox Clutch Challenge, with 8 players on the Rising Star squads divided into teams of 2 compete to knock down 5 historic shots that were made during the NBA playoffs. Wouldn't be too surprised if that Ray Allen shot appears as one of those challenges. Chris, do you like the new layout? You think it'll bring some more eyeballs to the Friday event that is of All-Star Weekend?
I do. The rookie game in the past, I watched for like 5 or 6 minutes. Obviously, if there's a Spur involved, I'm more interested. But to have a little tournament like this, we'll bond more with some of these personalities. And I love having the coaches be former players from the 75th anniversary team. That could be fun. I can only hope, Shannon, they are going to be mic'd for sound. That would make it even more fun to hear like these coaches jawing at one another as they're playing. The NBA makes a lot of good moves. I tend to like this one. I think it's pretty cool.
Yes, I think it'll be good and a lot of fun. It's also the games will be targeted to a score of 50, with the final being to 25. So it's not like the actual All-Star game where the score just gets run up to crazy numbers because guys they're not playing any defense. But as a reminder, All-Star Weekend will get underway with this matchup of the Rising Star Challenge Friday, February 18th in Cleveland. There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
My goodness, what a great Salty Shakedown. So much to digest, from the idiot running onto the field at the Chiefs-Bills game to Nick Kyrgios drinking the beer during a pandemic, and then almost hurting a child. Way to go, Nick. And then that NBA All-Star format. The thing I like also, Shannon, about this is you just mentioned back to the NBA, bringing on some G League players. I always like the whole Rocky Balboa underdog. So on one level, you've got these rookies like Cade Cunningham who are tremendous.
Sure.
To bring on some G League players to give them a chance in the spotlight and maybe to make some noise and shock the world and make a name for themselves and get attention from NBA teams. I think that's cool as well. I like that a lot.
We've got Bill coming up next, so we'll have to see if he thinks Josh Primo may make an appearance at the All-Star weekend.
Woo! I like it. Lots of that that we just talked about that we can talk to Bill Schoening about. Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs on a game day, game night, back-to-back. Spurs won big last night at Houston. They will play in San Antonio tonight against a very good Memphis Grizzlies team featuring John Morant. We'll talk about all of it with Bill Schoening next. Your chance to win $1,000 at 8:20 as well. With you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Woo! All right, I just got a message from David Munoz, the Jazz man, saying, hey, man, where are those R&R auto glass spots? So let me make those now. Let me get those for him now. See, Monday is the 31st, right? I need to date these. So it's next Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Check my trusty calendar. Monday is the 31st of January. Yes. Correctamundo. Two more. I got one down. All right, so that means February 2nd on this one. And one more. Okay, that was a mistake. Okay, Bill Schoening, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, joining us in just a moment. Okay, so the second, this would be the fourth file. Save as February 4th. Cool. Warren Wheeler, good morning. Pablo Perez, good morning. All right, let's see. David Munoz. I am sending them to you as I speak.
So this woman's being asked by the cops, so how did your husband die? She said, poison. They asked, well, how do you account for all these bruises all over his arms and his wrists and his hands and his torso? She says, he wouldn't take it.
Very nice. Thank you, sir. That was David Munoz with his joke of the day. All right, let's see. Dean Stone, welcome in. I got a weird feeling about the Bengals. I got a weird feeling that they could shock the world. Now, the fact that they beat Kansas City, I saw a stat yesterday. Patrick Mahomes is 4-1 in rematch games in a season when a team beat him earlier in the season. Mm-hmm. Cincinnati beat Kansas City in December at Cincinnati. So I think that even focuses Kansas City further on, hey, man, we got to really take this team seriously because they beat us. So, I mean, there's payback, there's seriousness, there's all that. So that I do believe benefits the Kansas City Chiefs. But Joe Burrow, man, and I've watched him a lot this year. He's special. So, okay, we got Bill Schoening. Okay, I'm not sure what that link there is. John Williams. The SAT. That's kind of random. Giving us SAT test news. Thank you, John Williams. Always eclectic. Always giving us the latest from the world of college test taking. What do I think of the SAT and ACT going digital? You know, if you can make sure people don't cheat, you know, we've got this technology. May as well use it. Who is Dean? Who said that about? I do remember them, Jason. PM Magazine with Mario Bosquez and Peggy Kokernot. I do remember them. Mario went on to have a big career in New York City. In fact, God, I worked with a guy who was the main cameraman on PM Magazine. What was his name? Thank you, sir. Oh, his name is Bruce Maniscalco. I used to do some commercials, and Bruce was the cameraman. Bruce is a great, great guy and a great talent. But Bruce Maniscalco worked and shot maybe all of those PM magazines with Mario Bosquez and Peggy Kokernot. My God, that was like what, the early 80s? Maybe even late 70s in San Antonio? How old are you, Jason Paniagua? You're too young to remember that, sir. Get off my lawn. Warren Wheeler, I am embarrassed to be such a huge fan of Major League Baseball and baseball. What a disgrace. Are you talking about who's not getting into the Hall of Fame? Is that your story, sir? Here we go. Bill Schoening. Oh, I need my Bill Schoening photo, baby. Where's Bill? Where's my Bill Schoening? There he is.
This is the Chris Duel Show.
Framing.
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side, yeah.
Now, Chris Duel.
Glory, glory, hallelujah, as we reach the midpoint of this wonderful week in sports. Of course, lots going on and off the field in the National Football League as we get ready for the NFC Championship game on Sunday. Brady Quinn, former Notre Dame quarterback, now a national broadcaster, telling us this morning that the AFC Championship game has already been played. It was played last Sunday, Bills versus Chiefs, and the Bengals showing up at Arrowhead this Sunday. Just a formality, apparently. So that's what I'm hearing. Don't know that I agree, but that's what I'm hearing. Coaching changes everywhere. We talked about Sean Payton of the New Orleans Saints stepping down yesterday. There are now 9 head coaching openings in the National Football League. Speaking of victories, I'm getting ahead of myself because last night in Houston, we talked about it earlier, but we'll talk about it more now. The San Antonio Spurs beat down the Houston Rockets in Houston, 134-100, 82 points in the paint for the Spurs, tying an NBA season high this year. Spurs in action tonight at the AT&T Center against the Memphis Grizzlies. And the man who had the call last night, the man who has the call tonight against Memphis, and the man who's had the call for the last 20 years plus for the San Antonio Spurs, the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. Bill, how are you doing this morning?
Very good, Chris. You make me feel old. I've been around a long time.
Yeah, but you're not old till you get to. How long was Chick Hearn, the voice of the Lakers? Wasn't he 40-something years? How long did he do it?
Well, he was there from 1965 until the 2001-2002 season was his last year. And the amazing thing about Chick was that he didn't miss a game for a while there until the final year or so when he got ill, and he was in his 80s by that time. But he has the record that will never be broken, I don't think, 3,388 consecutive broadcasts.
And you, Bill, I mean, that is an amazing number. And any of us who work in radio, any of us who speak a lot in our jobs, there are some days when A, you're just sick as a dog, or B, sometimes you lose your voice. I lose my voice about twice a year just from allergies and sometimes overuse if I'm yelling at the Dallas Cowboys on the television screen. Bill, you've kind of been an Iron Man as well over the years. I mean, you've been there to deliver the goods pretty much every night over those 20 years.
Well, I've tried to do that, Chris. I've got my 2000 consecutive broadcast coming up next month. I'm not quite sure what day it is.
Wow.
I'll have to check. Mike Bartlett, our producer, and I were trying to do some math last night, trying to figure it out. But, but I won't catch Chick unless I keep going until I think I figured it out. I can catch Chick if I keep going and don't miss a game until the 37-38 season. So I don't think I'm going to get there, Chris, to be very honest with you. To get to 3,300 games would take quite a bit. So I don't think I'm going to be able to get that far. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Bill, Coach Pop is on his way. We're a game, what did we say earlier, Chris? Game 8 away from setting yet another record. Just like you're counting up to 2,000 and hopefully eventually even going further than that. They got one game closer last night after they beat down Houston. They've got Memphis tonight. I really loved the ball movement that they showed last night. 38 assists for the Spurs team. 8 players scored in the double digits. Is that the type of game plan that they need to look to implement more often, especially when they play this tough Grizzlies team tonight?
Yeah, assists are always important for this ball club. Of course, when you shoot 57%, which was a season high, Shannon, that is a good sign that you're moving the ball well and you're getting good looks. And they shot that 57%, hit 12 threes last night. But the balance is what I liked. Nobody scored 20, and they had 8 guys in double figures. DeJounte Murray only had to play 24 minutes last night. None of the regulars were forced to play a lot of extra minutes in the first night of a back-to-back. In fact, it was a bench player who played the most minutes last night, Devin Vassell, who played very well. He played 29 minutes and had 12 points and 6 assists. So I think they should be pretty fresh going into this game. They like to move the ball. They like to try to do some of the things they did last night. Jakob Poeltl was able to get loose a little bit last night. He shot 9 of 13 from the field. And as Chris just mentioned, 82 points in the paint. The Spurs lead the league in that department. But last night it was a dominant performance, 82-58 in the paint. And that was a season high or tied a season high for points in the paint by any team in the NBA this season.
He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. And Bill, Shannon alluded to this, and I know there's some Spurs fans out there. You know, you talk about your milestone, the 2000th broadcast coming up. We are on Pop Watch. I do believe we're down to 8 games now until he is in sole possession of the record of most victories in the NBA regular season plus postseason. And Shannon and I have been having some fun predicting, and I think it's relatively predictable. And again, 20 years plus, you're covering this team. What will Greg Popovich's reaction be when he wins that game that makes him the winningest coach of all time? I'm sure in post game, they have to. One of the media members is going to bring it up. But we know Pop not one to bask in accolades. What do you think his reaction is going to be when he finally gets there?
Probably similar to last night when one of the reporters in Houston asked him about it. He's not really concerned about it. So it's a real ho-hum thing for him. And, you know, he already has the record for regular season and postseason combined. This would be for the regular season wins only, which for some reason they don't put on a coach's record as playoff wins. So this would be the regular season only. And it will be kind of ironic that he will pass Don Nelson. Of course, Don Nelson gave him an opportunity as an assistant out of Golden State in the early 90s. So a former mentor of his, Don Nelson, who I believe now is enjoying the good life. Last I heard, he was out in Maui, just kind of chilling. He let his hair grow, you know, and I think he's neighbors with Willie Nelson out there in Maui. So I think Don Nelson's living a good life. But, hopefully Pop will be able to get these 8 wins and get that taken care of.
Since we last spoke, Bill, the Brooklyn Nets came to town to take on the San Antonio Spurs. The Nets did get the better of them that night, but most notably, it was the first time Patty Mills was back in San Antonio, but this time in an opposing team's jersey. I read that there were a lot of celebrations surrounding Patty. What was your experience seeing Patty back on the court in San Antonio, but of course playing for the Nets?
Yeah, it's such an important part of Spurs history, those 10 years that Patty was with the Spurs. And, you know, when he first came to the Spurs, he was more like a bench guy that waved the towel a lot. And then eventually he worked his way into the rotation and became a very important part of that 14 championship team. And his threes in the second half, especially against the Miami Heat in Game 5, some of my fondest memories of covering the Spurs over the last 21 years, Patty's contribution to that championship team, and Patty's demeanor and the way he treats people over the last 10 years in a Spurs uniform. Obviously, he deserved all the credit that he got the other night and the accolades, and LaMarcus Aldridge as well. Of course, L.A. was only here 5 years and Patty was here for 10, but certainly one of the fan favorites throughout the years, Patty Mills, and it was real happy to see him get that honor. And now he's been honored with the Sportsmanship Award in his home country of Australia for the work that he's done with the indigenous people over there, his work of trying to unify that country, and all the different things that he does over in his home country. So it's really good to see Patty getting some of these accolades for not just being a great basketball player, but a great humanitarian.
Bill, I totally agree. And, you mentioned Patty Mills being a great humanitarian. I'll never forget, the bubble in Orlando when the Spurs played those games a couple of years ago. And Patty Mills donated his entire salary in the Orlando bubble, which was over $1 million to charitable causes that he believes in. And Bill, that's part of the fun of being a Spurs fan. And I know for you, as the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, great players on the court, their talents, their abilities. But when there's some of these guys who just connect with the fans in such a big way, Manu Ginobili comes to mind. I know you're a big fan, and you got to know Manu so well over the years. You covered every single dribble of his Spurs career. Certainly now Patty Mills. And it's also fun. We've talked about it when seemingly out of nowhere, a guy like either Boban Marjanovic or this season, Josh Primo, who came in at age 18, now he's 19. All of a sudden, Spurs fans latch onto this guy and absolutely love him. I think the personalities that break through for the Spurs are part of the fun as well.
Oh, absolutely. And Primo, of course, is part of the future. And I think that's one of the reasons why the fans are so pumped up about Josh Primo. They know that he might not necessarily be making a lot of contributions right now, but they know with his youth and the fact that he's going to be spending some time in Austin, he's part of the future build here for the Spurs. And I would imagine next year he'll be a very important part of what goes on. It's almost like he's got what do they call it in college, a redshirt year, where you're not playing, full time that first year, just kind of practicing. Although, he's been making some contributions with the parent club as well, but he's getting some seasoning right now in the G League. And I think that's important for him to get out there, play 28, 30 minutes a night, lead the team, get all that work in. And, maybe later this season, he'll be back up at the parent club, and then he should be ready to go for next year. But I think that Josh Primo's got a very bright future, and I can see why the Spurs fans are kind of latching on to him and making him a fan favorite.
Well, Bill, with that, do you hope to see Josh Primo in the Rising Stars Challenge at NBA All-Star Weekend? Because they have changed the format. It's going to be a mini tournament style, and they are going to include a couple of G League players this year.
Yeah, I would certainly hope that he would be included in that. I think he's an electric player. I think that fans will enjoy watching him play. They have changed that format up several times throughout the course of the year. That it used to be first-year players versus second-year players, and then, of course, it became the world players against the U.S. players. So that they keep changing that format. It's hard to follow all the time, but certainly it would be great to see Josh participate in that. It'd be a good experience for him.
Yeah, and Bill, Shannon was walking us through some of those changes this year during All-Star Weekend, and I just think it's fun. They're going to have, split up teams and have a tournament of these rising stars. And a couple of the innovations that I really love as well are they're going to bring in some G League players. One of those tournament teams is going to be comprised of G League players, which I think is a great opportunity, kind of like a Rocky Balboa thing from your native Philadelphia. These underdog G League players, imagine if that team could break through and win this tournament. And maybe my favorite part of it is that the coaches of this tournament will be members of the NBA 75th anniversary team. And I told Shannon, my big hope now is that those coaches are wired for sound. It would be so much fun during these games to hear those NBA greats who are coaching these young players, to hear them, maybe talk trash to one another across the court, hear how they relate to the players, some of the plays they run, some of the things they devise. I think once again here, very innovative by the NBA. I think they're doing something very, very fan-friendly here, and something that will be a lot of fun to tune into.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be mic'd up and they'll have a lot of fun. I don't know if I ever told you this, Chris, but I got a chance to coach against George the Iceman Gervin.
Oh,
speaking of 75 greatest players. Kia Motors used to be a big sponsor of the Spurs, and they would allow their employees to play kind of like a pickup game. I think it was the service department versus the sales department. And they would have the game at the Alamo Dome on the day of a Spurs game. It would be like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And several times they asked me to coach one of the two teams. And one time I coached against Sugar, Mike Gale,
nice.
Who the late Mike Gale, who of course passed away a couple of years ago, and he was another native of Philadelphia, and I really connected with him. But one time I got to coach against George the Iceman Gervin, and I threw a 2-3 zone out there, and I was talking trash with Ice, and we had a lot of his team won. So he outcoached me. He thoroughly outcoached me. But we had a lot of fun with it. And I was trying to have the guys play like a 2-3 matchup zone, and try to junk up the game a little bit. We were just having some fun. But that was awesome to spend some time going up against him.
We're going to pause for a quick moment here because we've got another key word for you. Your shot to put $1,000 in your hand, $1,000. Here it is.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Deposit. That's deposit. Enter it on our station website now.
Keyword deposit. You can enter that over at ticket760.com as well as am1300thezone.com for your chance at $1,000. We do that throughout the day on Ticket 760 and AM 1300 The Zone, and twice here during the Chris Duel Show. Talking to Bill Schoening, voice of the San Antonio Spurs. And Bill, I wanted to ask you this. This time of the year, there's a lot of trades, there's a lot of rumors going around. To start the season, the Lakers seemed like a favorite with all of the big names that were attached to that roster. One of them being Russell Westbrook. He was coming home. There were billboards, there were paintings around the city of just how great it was to have him as part of that roster. And now it seems like his name is on the block for trading. And maybe even to the Houston Rockets in favor of John Wall, a team that he has already played with and tried to get away from. I can't imagine he'd be excited to go back with the way the Rockets organization is looking right now. They're struggling. They're the last team in the West. Your thoughts on Russell Westbrook, and if you think that maybe this, kind of changes his legacy, because he was a guy who, he gets all the triple doubles. He's setting records left and right, but he's never been an MVP. He's never been a champion. And now here he is bouncing from team to team.
Yeah, Chris and I had a long talk in the beginning of the season about the Lakers. And Chris, I think you'll recall that I wasn't real optimistic about them winning the championship. I know a lot of people had them at the top of the Western Conference, but I just don't like a team that relies so much on older guys. Veteran players are the ones that win, obviously, in this league. But I think you got to have some youth and mix it up a little bit. And I think that when you have a lot of older players, you have a problem sometimes with health. And because what's the old line? Father Time is undefeated, right? Father Time does not lose. So I think sometimes when you have so many older players that it makes it very, very difficult. So I'm not sure where Westbrook's going to end up. It's hard for me to imagine unless the Rockets are just so ready to get rid of John Wall. Them reacquiring Russell Westbrook, unless it's to move him again, because clearly the Rockets are in a rebuilding mode. They've got a lot of young players. One of the few veteran players in their team is Eric Gordon. Just about everybody else is in their 20s or even younger. Şengün is 19, I believe, and Porter and Green, they're very young players. They didn't even play college ball. I think Porter played maybe 1 year at USC, and Green played in the G League last year. So they've got a lot of young players. Jayshawn Tate's only in his second year. I just can't see that scenario working out. Maybe they can figure out something, but I don't know if Westbrook going back to the Rockets really is a fit there as far as I'm concerned.
He's the voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. I do remember that conversation, Bill. And I kind of raised my eyebrows when you said you weren't so sure the Lakers were going to be all that this year, because they were so not far removed from going to the finals and winning. And I looked at all that star power, but once again, you were correct in your assessment. Speaking of the Lakers, Bill, Shannon and I, we do sports history every day. And there was an item on this day in sports history that stopped me in my tracks. It made me think of you because I kind of shared that day with you on the air somewhat. Just 2 years ago today, and on one level it seems like yesterday, on another it seems like more than that, but this was the day, Bill, in 2020 that Kobe Bryant and those other souls were killed on that helicopter crash near Calabasas, California. And I was telling Shannon that was a Spurs game day on a Sunday. I remember walking into the building, and Michael Bartlett told me, and it took me seconds, if not minutes, to process it. I remember, hearing you in pregame just shortly after you received the news. That's one of those days, Bill, in life and in sports where you kind of remember where you were when you heard that awful news.
Yeah, especially when it was a game day and the Spurs had the first game out of the chute that day. It was the first game to be played after the news was out. And it was really strange because they shut off the locker room because there were several Spurs players, including DeMar DeRozan, who was close to Kobe. And the reporters weren't allowed in the room to get a reaction because it had just happened. And they were just still confirming everything. So that was completely understandable. But the buzz and the murmur around the arena, with people on their phones and just hearing this, because I think TMZ was the first one to report it. So it's like, no, that couldn't have happened. Well, it did. And of course, the tribute played by, I think it was the Toronto Raptors, the Spurs were playing that day, if I'm not mistaken. And the fact that there was a 24-second violation to start the game because Kobe wore 24. And then ensuing possession, an 8-second backcourt violation honoring the number 8 because Kobe obviously wore 24 and he wore 8 to start his career. So, that just kind of happened, and we weren't figuring that out until, oh yeah, wait a minute, a 24-second violation. That makes complete sense. So yeah, it was a real sad day, kind of a surreal day. And I only got to know Kobe a little bit, Chris, because in those gang settings, where you have all the different reporters with their microphones, you can't really have a one-on-one conversation. But right before he retired, I wanted to have a little brief chat with Kobe because his dad, Joe Bryant, they call him Jelly Bean. Kobe's name is Kobe Bean Bryant. His dad is Jelly Bean, Joe Bryant. Went to John Bartram High School right in my neighborhood where I grew up in Philadelphia. And then he went to LaSalle University there in Philly. And of course, he went overseas and he played in the NBA as well. But Joe Bryant, people don't realize he was a really good player, Kobe's dad. So he had a lot of roots right there in my neighborhood where I grew up. So I wanted to tell Kobe that story about, his dad playing at John Bartram and everything. And he was a great conversation. It was only about a 3 or 4 minute conversation on the way back to the locker room. But I treasure that moment now. I'm so happy I had the opportunity to just visit with him for a few minutes.
Absolutely wonderful. You had the opportunity to share that with Kobe. And I'm always amazed at Philadelphia, where your roots are from. So many amazing NBA players have come out of Philly over the years. Bill Schoening will have the call tonight. Spurs trying to make it 2 in a row. It'll be a great test against the team that has the number 3 slot currently in the Western Conference, the Memphis Grizzlies. Tip-off at the AT&T Center just after 7:30. Spurs Radio Game Night, our pregame show with Bill Schoening, starting at 7 o'clock out of 1200 WOAI in San Antonio and across the Spurs Radio Network. Bill, we always love it. It's always even more special on a game day / game night. Thanks so much for taking the time, and we'll see you on the radio tonight.
Thank you, Chris and Shannon. Good to be with you.
Thanks so much. Voice of the San Antonio Spurs, Bill Schoening. We got a lot of ground to still cover. I do want to get into the ugliness last night at the Texas TCU game. We'll get into that. Lots of things to talk about still involving Antonio Brown. He speaks out. Has some interesting things to say about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and where his future may lie. And Shaq getting involved in the Dallas Cowboys goings on. That and a whole lot more coming right up. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave OEHLER, your Soundscape stylist. Thanks for hanging out with us till 9 o'clock on the Chris Duel Show. Little nice purple haze on the way out after talking Lakers. Purple haze. Yeah, Facebook.
know we were flat again?
I saw that, and there was no reason for it this time that I'm aware of.
The only thing I think that it might be is the doors on the open. The doors on?
Yeah,
I don't know where else.
I know.
Where else any music would be coming?
Yeah, sadly, if the engineers can't figure it out, now we're running Shannon's audio during segments. Sadly, we're gonna, and it's a hassle, and I don't want her to have to do it, but we might have to have Shannon mute her mic until we get into the segments now. But that's crazy. And
does the open music go out over?
it wasn't supposed when we first started doing this. The engineers here, it's beyond my comprehension how they do it, but they set it up in such a way that music would not go out. So I don't think the engineers in Austin, I don't think have thought about that, or I don't think it's gotten to that level with them yet. So
it always seems to happen just after the top of the hour.
Yeah. So
Maybe it's the worst.
yeah, either we'll have Shannon mute until then, or if I remember, maybe I'll mute her from here and then fire it once I start talking. I don't know. It sucks. And it really sucks because we pay for ASCAP and BMI rights to the music, which kind of sucks. But
yeah, and they always release it, but it takes an hour later.
yeah, and you see like the people watching us drop from 20 to 0, and now we're at 4. So yeah, sucks. All right, let me see here what we got going. I need that. I need that. I'm gonna get rid of that. Woo! Yeah, so yeah, that's why they Facebook runs us, Jason. So we'll have to come up with a different plan. I might.
I saw this the other day, and maybe we get this tomorrow or maybe next week. This was GQ magazine. They put a list out of the greatest living anti-heroes in sports.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And just Google GQ's list of sports anti-heroes.
Oh, I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you for that.
It's in this month's GQ magazine. But there's some of them are like soccer players I don't know, but like Jack Lambert's on there, Charles Barkley. Bad Boy Detroit Pistons, John McEnroe.
Yeah, that's tremendous. Cool. I see it. I found the link. Thank you.
Maybe if we don't do it tomorrow, we can do it maybe next week or later.
Yeah, I love it. And to their credit, I don't have to click every time I want to see another name.
Exactly. Yeah.
That drives.
Right on the one page.
Yeah, when I see that, even if I'm interested, I jump out. It's like, you know what? That's horse.
I don't know why they do it like that.
It's clickbait. They're able to say to their advertisers, "Hey, look at all of our clicks." So it's total clickbait.
I subscribe it so that I got that magazine last week. And I go, okay, well, that's
Beautiful.
but yeah, it's on the internet.
Thanks for telling me. I'll send that link to Shannon as well. Okay, so let's do this.
Woo! Woo!
All right.
Back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney.
Welcome back. Lots coming at you between now and 9 o'clock. It is the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave OEHLER is your Soundscape stylist. Making the show go. Lots going on in the world of sports. We've been all over it this morning. The big banner headline out of the National Football League yesterday, Sean Payton stepping down as head coach of the New Orleans Saints. That makes nine head coaching vacancies in the NFL. We talked a lot about that. David Ortiz makes it into the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Pete Rose, Alex Rodriguez, the usual suspects once again do not We talked a lot of baseball with Scott MANDZIARA. Speaking of baseball, coming up on Friday, Mike Hardball Harge going to join us, former professional baseball player. Now he is just blowing it up on the Sports Grind with Calvin Casey, Jonas Clark on that show as well. Sam Freese, our good friend from the Mike Taylor Show, there as well. Shannon, lots of stories we have yet to get to, and we will get to them right now. One of which, the Texas Longhorns men's basketball team took care of business last night. They defeated TCU 73-50. You know, when you brought up earlier fans behaving badly, the Yahoo at the Chiefs-Bills game who decided to run out onto the field. And while I don't like that, Shannon, fans for TCU probably, in my estimation, behaving worse last night at the basketball game against the Longhorns.
Yeah, prior to the start of the game, there were some chants coming from the TCU section, and having just taken my FCC training, I know that I can't repeat it for you here. But it started with a four-letter word and ended with UT. I'm guessing, since they're TCU fans, they're upset that one Mr. Gary Patterson, former head coach of the football program there for the Horned Frogs, is now a special assistant to the head coach at the University of Texas in that football program, and that they are upset. And then they probably coupled that with the basketball team, as they have swiped Chris Beard. But unlike the Chris Beard thing, for which I'm sure the environment in Lubbock here to come will be even more hostile than what the Horned Frogs put up, Texas didn't fire or persuade Gary Patterson to leave TCU. He did that on his own. He came after the fact, right? So there's no foul play there. Sure, be upset about it, but be upset at him, not us. That's not our problem. But the University of Texas won that one handedly last night, 73-50. So they got the last laugh there.
Yeah, and be upset, but show some class. And I mean, their chant, the four-letter word, blank UT, blank UT, for TCU to do that, they do that in their house. And I just, first of all, a couple of things occur to me. Number one, just this weird angst against UT. Whenever I see, and I say this, the Oklahoma Sooners with their horns down, but you know what? It's more about attacking UT than, saying Boomer Sooner. To me, that speaks of an inferiority complex on your part. And I think the same thing here for TCU. It's like, really? That's who you want to be? Chanting that in your house, in your arena, in a Big 12 game between you and the Texas Longhorns. And you make a great point. You guys fired Gary Patterson. He had to leave. So, and secondly, if you have an issue with Gary Patterson, bring some banners, which would really kind of be stupid at a basketball, even when you think about it, because he's a football coach. But I just think, and TCU is a great school. I know TCU graduates, but if I were a TCU alum this morning, I would not be proud of my university. I would not be proud of the current students who feel the need to be so vulgar during a basketball game in their arena. Imagine if some prospective students were coming. Imagine if somebody brought their kid, their 17, 18-year-old kid, or even younger, to the game going, hey, man, you might want to go to TCU someday. It's a really good school. And then there's that. I just, unnecessary, wrong, and embarrassing to that school itself, in my view.
Yeah. But like I said, Texas ultimately gets the win 73-50. They've got bigger fish to fry. Saturday, 7:00 at the Irwin Center. They're hosting Tennessee. I'm sure Texas fans will not create some fancy chant to mock that team as, former Texas basketball head coach Rick Barnes walks in, right? We love, Texas fans still love Rick Barnes, and I think he'll be greeted as such. But then next Tuesday, we're less than a week away now from Texas heading to Lubbock to take on the number 13 Texas Tech Red Raiders for the first time with Coach Beard in tow, but on the other bench this time. So, like I said, that's the environment that Texas and fans and the team need to prepare for, not TCU.
Yeah, and this will be a good test for Texas Tech fans. Are they going to chant blank UT? Blank. I mean, are they going to do that like TCU did? Oh, and an interesting comment on the live video feed, Shannon, from Jason Paniagua says, what does the C in TCU stand for again? Christian. How Christian of you, TCU Horned Frogs, to be chanting that. I'm sure Jesus would be there with you chanting that about UT. Not embarrassing yourselves. Speaking of fans, Shannon, and shifting gears a little bit, it's been a big story on a few angles this week. The Los Angeles Rams hosting the San Francisco 49ers in the NFC Championship game at SoFi Stadium, which will be the site of the Super Bowl in less than 3 weeks. You brought up last week the wife of Matthew Stafford saying, hey, I've never seen so many opposing fans before in our house, rooting for their team, which is a road team against the Rams. We had the story early in the week, the Rams wanting Ticketmaster to geographically limit tickets. Apparently that was lifted by Monday. So now we've got another chapter in the Rams versus 49er fan saga. What's going on now?
Yeah, so season ticket holders for the Rams got first dibs on tickets, and they bought up all of the available tickets for them, and so Sean McVay applauded them for that, but he's now saying, listen, if you've got those tickets, hold on to them. Don't sell them. He understands that it could be a big payday for some people, but he's like, your fans, hold on to them, come to the game, cheer us on. He even said, we're going to put on a great show. It'll be worth the price of admission. They're really pushing for, and this has kind of been a storyline throughout. We also talked last week about the Titans and the Bengals, but I feel like it's a little different in LA, right? Because these teams are still relatively new to the area, and it's such already a mixed pot of, a mixing pot of who's fans of what teams in the area. And there's probably some people that live there that have always been 49ers fans just because they've been in California their whole lives. And maybe they didn't have the teams, the teams have kind of moved around. Maybe they've just 49ers people. And so maybe that market is a little larger there. So it is harder to kind of get Rams fans and get new Rams fans to join in the fun. But I'm with Sean McVay. If you bought those tickets, use them, keep them. I think it'll be a great game. And you never know, it might be the last game for the Rams this year. Hopefully not. I think I'm going to be picking the Rams this weekend, but I'm with Sean McVay on this one, especially if you're a season ticket holder. Don't buy them up just so you can sell them.
See, I see it as a cry for help by Sean McVay. I see it as fear. I always go back to Tom Landry and Jimmy Johnson. Can you see Jimmy Johnson? Hey, Cowboys fans, please, please hold on to your tickets. Please don't sell those to any Packers fans who might show up as we take on Brett Favre and the Packers in the NFC. It would never happen. It's like, we're the Cowboys. We're going to kick your butt. You little weasels want to come in here and root for your little team. Fine. I don't know. And you make an excellent point, though, about the Rams were gone for a long time in St. Louis, and the 49ers were winning lots of football games, so they probably do have a big footprint in Southern California. I don't know that I like, Matthew Stafford's wife, okay. Sean McVay pleading with the fans, please don't relinquish your, I don't know. But it's a new era. It's a new time. And it may be necessary. I don't know. Yeah. All right. Speaking of football, go ahead.
Yeah. It's a little silly, but do what you got to do, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Shaq messaging Jerry Jones via a podcast to make a move. What is the Shaqster telling Jerry Jones to do these days?
Do we have the audio, Dave? Because it's some fantastic Shaq audio.
Oh, got it up audio, even better.
Perfect.
Here comes some Shaq audio. Beautiful.
I'm putting this out right now. Deion Sanders as the next head coach for the Cowboys. Jerry Jones, this message is from Shaquille O'Neal Incorporated. Deion Sanders for the next coach of the Cowboys.
Why not?
You want to get Dallas back rocking? bring Deion to the fold. Deion will hold those players accountable. Deion Sanders for the next Cowboys coach. Put it out. Tweet it. Damn it. TikTok it. Instagram it. OnlyFans it. Put it out. ET it.
Not
Spice
OnlyFans.
Woman.
Nice. I like Shannon. I like it. And, you know, I wanted when USC was looking for a head coach. I wanted Deion to come to USC before we got Lincoln Riley because he's a huge name. He's a huge draw. He's a Hall of Famer. He was a stud on the field. He's got passion. My God, compare his passion level and to motivate a team versus Mike McCarthy. I am totally with Shaq on this, Shannon.
Yeah, it's a name we haven't discussed, especially, but he does seem pretty locked in. He just got all of those great recruits recently for his university, but agreed with Shaq that any name seems better than Mike McCarthy right now. And if it's something that would work out, I don't think I'd mind Deion Sanders being there. I love that Shaq. I mean, he addressed Jerry personally, right? And tweet it. Instagram it. He even said OnlyFans it. I don't know how that would work. But whatever you got to do to get the message across. I mean, Jerry, you've got Shaq on this now. Do something.
Way to go, Shaq. Jerry, listen to the people who are talking to you. Finally, Shannon, our good buddy, Antonio Brown, he goes on HBO's Real Sports with Bryant Gumbel, among other things. He told Bryant Gumbel that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were trying to bribe him, give him $200,000 to go see a shrink so that they could then say, you've got mental health issues. And so he wants to sue the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And apparently yesterday indicating where he would like to land next in the National Football League.
Yeah, so he's now considering filing a defamation suit against the Buccaneers and at the same time making it be known that he'd love to catch passes from one Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens, and then Lamar Jackson went and retweeted that sentiment. Don't know that it necessarily means anything. I don't see Harbaugh accepting a guy like Antonio Brown into that locker room, given everything that's gone on, given that, you know, he was on the opposite end of Antonio Brown and some of his better catches earlier on in his career when they would meet up twice a year. The Steelers versus the Ravens. So I think he's done with the league, but he clearly thinks that there's more to come in his career. And at this point, he's taken to having a voice for himself where he'd like to end up.
We will keep an eye. He also tweeted out a photo of himself in a Ravens uniform yesterday, did Antonio Brown. So yeah, Jim Harbaugh and every other coach in the NFL. Let's just be done with this dude. He's burned too many bridges, and you'd be stupid, any coach, to want to bring this dude on board. Shannon Salty Sweeney, spectacular, stellar performance as always this morning on a Wednesday. Let's do this thing again in 21 hours.
Thank you, sir. It's always fun. We're that much closer to the weekend.
Woo! That's right. And the NFC Championship game.
Heck yes.
Since the AFC Championship game was already played last week, according to Brady Quinn. Mr. Dave Ayler, are you with us again tomorrow, man? I need a scorecard. I never know.
Yes, I'm planning on being here tomorrow.
Very cool, sir. You did spectacularly as well, except for you getting us kicked off of Facebook today. I blame you.
That's you.
I hold you and Jim Morrison personally accountable. All right. We will see you tomorrow. Have a great Wednesday. Adios. All right, y'all. Adios, amigos. Hasta mañana.